All right, folks. House Government Operations and Military Affairs, Tuesday afternoon, January 21st. We're gonna start taking testimony on draft language provided by the council to help clarify some municipal elections operations. Something that was brought to our attention, creating some procedural hiccups for certain municipalities. So we are going to start things off today by talking to some of the stakeholders within League of Cities and Towns, clerks. But I think I actually want to start with the Secretary of State's office. Yes. Do you want to do the walkthrough first? Okay. Yeah, let's do that.
I think that's good. Well, we have Tucker here.
Yeah, you're on the phone, aren't you?
Always. Never off. Try to quiet my mind, never happens. Just think about legislation all day.
You and me both, my friend.
Good afternoon, Tucker Anderson, Legislative Council. You should have in front of you and posted on the committee's webpage a draft committee bill that is marked 25-0668. I did ask if they could change it to the number of the beast. They said no. So you have draft 1.2 as the most recent version. There were some updates to the initially proposed section 2 in draft 1.1 that I put together during lunch this afternoon. For context and background about the particular statute that we are going to be working in. This is the statute that governs the use of the Australian ballot system, that is the secret ballot system, poll system for local elections. And specifically, we're going to be looking at subsection B within 17 VSA, section 2680. It governs the use of Australian ballot for the election of officers in those local elections. Jumping into the language of the bill in section 1 amends that 17 VSA, section 2680 in subsection B to clarify that the Australian ballot system can be used for the election of any or all officers. And that any or all is really the fix that you will hear about, I'm assuming, in later testimony. The issue with the current language in this subsection is that it is not clear whether a municipality could vote to apply the Australian ballot system to some of its officers, but not all. And I believe what you may hear from some of the witnesses later is that there is a consensus view that in fact, this is an all or nothing statute currently. And that in practice, there are municipalities that are not compliant with that all or nothing standard in subsection B. So moving through subsection B, states that once a municipality votes to elect any or all officers by the, I'll call it AB system, the officers shall be elected in that manner until the municipality votes to discontinue the use of the Australian ballot system. New language. A vote on whether to use the system to elect officers shall be in substantially the following form. There are two options that the municipality can use. So moving into subdivision 1 on line 18, they can ask, shall the town elect its clerk by Australian ballot? They'll insert the specific name, title of the office to be elected there. 2, shall the town elect all municipal officers by Australian ballot? So what's happening in this section? You're allowing any or all, some of the officers to be elected by Australian ballot, and for the rest of, for example, the annual meeting to be conducted by floor proceedings. And then providing the language that will be used for future municipality to use the Australian ballot system for any and all. Or all, excuse me, to be careful of my conjunctions. Section 2. Section 2 is session law that is going to wave the legislative wand to say first in subsection A that any failure to comply with the prior provisions of 17 VSA section 2680 sub B or the failure to comply with this act by the time annual meeting dates come around in 2025, it will all be okay. That there will not be any challenge to these elections based on this act and the new procedure that's being set out or the prior provisions of 2680B. And in subsection B, it is looking back retrospectively and saying that any municipality that held a vote and approved the use of the Australian ballot system for some of its officers, it's okay. And further, that any election that was held for those officers, looking back retrospectively, all the way back is also okay. So diving into the words on the page. In subsection A, it states that this act shall not render invalid the election of any municipal officer at a 2025 annual municipal meeting. Further, that the failure of a municipality to comply with the procedures required by this act, so for example, using those two specific questions that are set out now in section 1, or the prior provisions of subsection B, shall not be the basis for any action related to the election of a municipal officer at a municipality's annual meeting in 2025. So you can't sue to contest the election of an officer based specifically on this act or the prior language of 2680B for purposes of this year's elections. Subsection B, the validity of a vote by a municipality to elect some, but not all, municipal officers prior to the effective date of this act, so retrospectively, shall not be subject to challenge for failure to comply with this act or the prior provisions of subsection B. And in any municipality that voted to elect some, but not all municipal officers prior to the effective date of this act, the election of a municipal officer shall not be subject to challenge for failure to comply with this act or the prior provisions of subsection B. I sent the committee, in addition to this language, an example from 1981 Act 239 from the adjudicated session. And I don't have it in front of me, but I think it was section 41. You'll know because it's probably posted on the website. But the language that is used here is substantially similar to that session law language from 1981, which was packaged with amendments to 17 VSA 2680 and did the same thing. Looked back, waved to the legislative wand and said, since we're changing procedures in this section, we're going to absolve any failure to comply with these procedures and say that those elections can't be challenged on the basis of this act. This act is set to take effect on passage. That's section 3.
Thank you.
That, and thank you for the quick work getting this language to us in the amended language. Any questions for Tucker from the committee? All right,
Mr. Representative Burlington.
how are you, sir? Please.
Thank you. Does this have any impact on any non-annual meeting type elections or filling vacancies midterm, anything like that?
I'm not certain. And I would say that this statute applies to the use of the Australian ballot system for the election of officers, and I am only aware of issues related to upcoming annual meetings and the election of officers.
Okay.
Not sure about anything else.
Representative Pisno.
Thank you. Are we asking all municipalities to put question 1 or 2 on the 2025 annual meeting ballot?
No. Those questions are the questions that will be used in the future for any municipality that is voting to adopt the Australian ballot system.
Okay.
Going once, going twice. You're off the hook. Thank you, council. And now for the Secretary of State's office. Okay. How you doing, Deputy Secretary?
How are you?
Fabulous, thank you. Good to see you again.
Good to see you.
For the record, Lauren Hibbert, Deputy Secretary of State, thank you so much for having us in today and for fast tracking this legislation, and particular gratitude to your legislative counsel who has worked a magical legislative wand with Section B. So very much appreciated. This language came to our attention, to VLCT's attention, to VMCTA's attention, and certainly to town's attention, because we had been previously, as Ledge Council referred to, we've been previously providing guidance that this section of the law, 2680, was an all or nothing provision, meaning towns had to vote to do all of their officers by Australian ballot or all of their officers from the floor. And if towns wanted to do some officers by Australian ballot and some officers on the floor, that was okay as long as it was in the charter. But we have a lot of towns that do not have a charter that have been utilizing this mixed methodology of voting, meaning we have towns that had taken a vote 50 years ago to allow for mixed methodology voting of some officers by floor, some officers by Australian ballot, and have been proceeding under that methodology for the duration of time. But our guidance was in contradiction. So this group of people is in agreement on several things. One, that towns should be allowed to use mixed methodology voting, that towns know best what positions should be voted on from the floor and which positions should be voted on by Australian ballot. And two, that we do not want to require towns to go through the charter process to codify that for the duration of time. So we fully support at the Secretary of State's office this clarification of the law. And I'll just say that the way that this is drafted mimics the remainder of the statute, which covers budget questions and public questions. So the way that the towns have to offer the question is exactly the same. So we appreciate that consistency. And we also appreciate this draft because it has a prospective solution for towns protecting the methodology of voting and a retrospective protection for towns. And we think that provides a lot of clarity and surety to towns as they're preparing for their annual meeting.
Okay, so this was originally flagged by folks in Hyde Park, correct?
Yes, it was a question that came to our office and I believe to VLCT from Hyde Park. And then there was a subsequent news article, public records request to our office. And then it came to light that there were actually a lot of towns in a similar situation.
Do you know how many towns, plus minus?
Well, what I can say based on our research is that about 48% of towns use mixed methodology voting, but many of them also have a charter. So once we knew that it was a problem for more than one or two, we decided to not pursue like the analysis of how many, but just that there needed to be a solution. So we could dig into that for the committee if you want, but it's clear that this is an issue that's facing a lot of towns.
Understood. Does anybody else have any questions for Deputy Secretary?
Thank you.
All right, thank you for the time. And I guess up next, the LCT.
Director, Josh Hanford, Director of Intergovernmental Relations at the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. First time before the committee this year. I think Samantha was here last week.
Samantha Sheehan, Municipal Policy and Advocacy Specialist, also with the Vermont League of Cities and Towns. And thanks for having me back so soon.
And we won't take a ton of time. We're in complete agreement with what the Secretary, Deputy Secretary of State said, with the solution that your general counsel has provided. And hope that this can move forward. And thank you for taking such quick action. There are more than two, I know that, that have directly reached out to me that are in this situation and have been doing the way that was described for many decades. So I think the solution is quite a good fix to sort of move people into doing it properly and not disrupt what people have done in the past. And one thing we will add, and Samantha jump in here, some of these positions that are maybe sort of less popular, they get elected on the floor, might not be filled if there wasn't a chance to have floor votes and discussions. Someone didn't fill out a petition, put their name in. It's not even on the ballot because no one would come forward to run for that position unless there was a discussion at town meeting to sort of encourage some folks to take on some of these roles. Any more to add there?
So with this language being pretty fresh and new, have your folks, your legal teams been able to take a look at it, digest it? They're content with the words on the page right now?
Absolutely.
Yeah, we shared it with them not that long ago and heard back a few minutes ago that they support the language.
Okay. Questions from the table? Straightforward.
As I said last week, when this came out on our Muninet, the town clerk's Muninet from Hyde Park, there were Callis was one. There were several towns. They're like, oh my gosh, we've been doing it wrong.
Yeah.
And town clerks freaking out, thinking that they'd broken the law.
My first point of contact with this was actually from Rep Mahaly with the callous concerns. So that was the first email I got on this. So yeah. And I actually we looked at the language today as well because he was really on top of this. So all right. We are looking at move this very quickly. So I just wanted to make sure that even with the new language, everything is clear on your end. Should we take action on this? Because as long as everything goes smoothly today, I think we're going to vote this as soon as we get the bill in here.
Excellent.
We support it and we really appreciate the swift action and response. I think successive hearing calendars is maybe a record in my career. So really appreciate the action that you're taking here. It'll help our membership have a much happier town meeting day.
And that's the
That is
reason
one of my
for-
goals.
For the speed at which this is moving.
Well, thank you very much. Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Arsenal, how are you?
Very good, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much for your time and the committee's time. Again, my name is Tim Arsenault. I am the town clerk of Vernon and the current co-chair of the legislative committee for the Vermont Municipal Clerk Treasurers Association. We are extremely happy and gratified with the solution that has been put together by Legislative Council, the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, and the Deputy Secretary of State. This makes a lot of people among our membership a lot happier at a time of the year when we're all stressed out over meeting deadlines and things. So thank you very much in advance for whatever you can do.
Okay. So I assume with that enthusiasm, you folks have had a chance to digest the language and are content with it?
Yes, it's a very simple fix, and the leadership of our association and members of our legislative committee had a chance to look at this, and it looks fine.
Anything from the table? Is this really this easy?
It was all this easy.
Right. Well, I appreciate you being available. We wanted to check in with you as a representative of your organization just to make sure that all the words were in the right place. So unless you have anything else to share with us,
Just our gratitude, Mr. Chairman.
thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you for the work that you do too. All right, committee. We are going to be getting this. Originally, the conversation was to do this as a committee bill for sake of the calendar. It appears that it's going to be introduced with the bill number. So as soon as it comes in, I think we're going to carve out a couple of minutes to just kind of make sure we're still discontent with it. And vote it out. I did meet with Senator Callamore this morning and let him know that this thing was coming to him as quickly as possible. So they are waiting for it over in the Senate. And hopefully we can get this thing on the books in time to make town meeting day smooth. So, and unless there's anything else from folks, I think that might be an afternoon. Good. Nope. All right.
Thank you.
That was a quick hit for GovOps today.
Nice, it took me